Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. After those very thought provoking, informative, very interesting roundtable session, we are heading towards the post lunch session. May I inform you all that we have received our chief guest, our guest for our event. We are very, very honored. Thank you for gracing this occasion with your presence, sir. Most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, could you please put your hands together as I invite on stage our chief guest, Member Niti Aayog, Dr. Vinod Pal. And may I request Dr. Mansoor Dalal to kindly escort him on the stage. We are also honored to have with us as our guest Dr. Saurabh Garg, Secretary, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Very warm welcome to you. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause as we welcome our guests. Before we begin, I know both our guest does not require any introduction, but allow me, sir, to say a few words about you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very privileged to have with us globally recognized medical scientist and a public health exponent who has served on the faculty of the Department of Pediatrics, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi from the 1985 to 2020 and was the head of the department for nearly a decade. The government of India appointed Dr. Paul as a member of Niti Aayog in 2017. At Niti, he leads the health, nutrition, and HRD verticals. He has played a pivotal role in the formulation of key initiatives such as Ayushman Bharat PMJ. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for our chief guest. And may I request Mr. Adarsh Narahari to join us on the stage and present a floral bouquet and a memento and welcome Dr. Vinod Paul. Huge round of applause. We are also very privileged to have with us Dr. Saurabh Garg. May I say a few words about him? Dr. Garg, until recently, was the CEO Unique Identification Authority of India, where he was instrumental in expanding the usage of Aadhaar and strengthening the technology stack of the Aadhaar ecosystem. Dr. Garg is an IS officer of Odisha cadre and has worked as a joint secretary in the Department of Expenditure and Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Government of India, and as a secretary in the Department of Agriculture, Industries and Urban Development at the Government of Odisha. He was on a secondment as an advisor at the World Bank, Washington, D.C. Very warm welcome to you, sir. And may I request Mr. Ankur Gupta to kindly join us onto the stage and present a floral bouquet and a memento. We welcome our guest with a floral bouquet. May I now request our chief guest, Dr. Vinod Paul, to kindly guide us with his words.
Namaste, good afternoon. Respected Dr. Saurabh Gargji, distinguished family of Asli conglomerate, friends. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here amongst pioneers, thought leaders who are together and offering solutions for an area of work of our society which is gaining increasing importance. It has always been important to look after our elderly in the best possible manner, family-centered manner, over millennia, but with new challenges, new possibilities. We have to be moving forward systematically, thoughtfully, and using technology to the best of our ability, and while doing so, not to lose the human touch and the family touch. Honor to be here. It must have been stated many a time since morning that there has been a demographic transition. We are out there to benefit from the the demographic advantage that we have, the dividend that we have. But at the same time, our elderly population is rising in number, rising in volume, rising in complexity. The life expectancy at the time of independence was only 27 years. 27 years. Today we are 69, 70. Developed nations have life expect more developed nations than us have a life expectancy around 82, 84, 85. Japan has around 87. It is quite evident that with extra effort, but even on a secular trend, we will be above 80 life expectancy and perhaps 84 by the year we attain 100 years of our independence. So life expectancy would rise further, and we want to be there. Why should our life expectancy of our nation be less than that? And we're making all efforts, health and non-health efforts, to make sure that we go in that direction. But also that it brings in difficulties, challenges, not only of health and nutrition, but also of several social and developmental dimensions. I'm glad that an organization like yours is consciously addressing these areas, also finding vibrant solutions. But above all, you're bringing together people to move in the direction of solutions. And I believe you are bringing teams and organizations, technologies to do so. You're bringing options and investments for elderly living in a big way. I salute you for doing that. And indeed, creating a vibrance around these burning issues that surround the care of the elderly in many, many ways. Coming from the health sector, I'm very conscious of the fact that we need to devise elderly specific approach to healthcare in addition to whatever else we are doing. And the challenges are well known. One third of the elderly are hypertensive, 20% of them have mental health issues. It's known from the famous last study, for example. A large number of them need assistive devices, and so on and so forth. We should find pathways to provide care for these conditions and more in as much as possible in the home setting, and if required, to bring them into facilities if need be. I like to mention here that the Health and Wellness Center mission, the Ayushman Bharat Health and Wellness Center mission, which is the flagship program of the Honorable Prime Minister, alongside other Ayushman Bharat pillars and other health programs, where we are visualizing comprehensive primary health care at the previously termed sub-centers and primary health centers. They have been now upgraded in terms of human resources, in terms of digital solutions, telemedicine, drugs, and so on, and efficiency, and the team to be called Health and Wellness Center, which is typically being led by a community health officer who is a BSc, a post BSc trained competent nurse in most states. That gives us an opportunity to put in place treat care of the elderly as well as, of course, the other care for about 5 to 6,000 population for which this Health and Wellness Center is responsible. We have not yet got a functional model of this. We are working on it. I would seek help from you, from other stakeholders, as to how to create an excellent. We have a blueprint. We have what we call as guideline for elderly care at the Health and Wellness Center. But we would like your partnerships to operationalize this model in rural settings and adapted model in the urban settings in a significant way. So the first point that I wish to make is that government is nation clearly is moving in the direction of strengthening care of the elderly through the lens of primary health care, which would mean screening for illnesses, treatment, drugs being given, hopefully also elements of home care, hopefully assistive technologies, of also working on the mental health issues as required. So A, we would like to move in the direction of operationalizing primary health care for the elderly across the nation. And these are 1,61,000 health and wellness centers loaded with the team that I mentioned and aided by technology such as telemedicine and Aadhaar driven follow up and so on. It would usher in a paradigm shift in the way the geriatric population has to be looked after. Likewise, there will be initiatives in the health sector for the care of the elderly in the space of nutrition and so on and so forth that we would like to work. I mentioned health to begin with because it is fundamental. It's so important, and we have not yet fully cracked it, as I said, and we need help from you. And we need help from you to also adapt this to urban settings and to groups which are comparatively well off, where other services can converge, insurance models can help, and also, of course, we connect the relevant beneficiaries to the Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which is health assurance scheme as a part of continuum. I'm very honored and very pleased and very proud to learn that there is an emerging set of technologies of use by the elderly. Technologies which can assist the elderly, technology which can monitor the health of the elderly, technologies which can connect them through digital empowerment to the services and so on. Indeed, a very thoughtful space because this would enable us efficiencies, higher coverage, equity, as well as quality of care. And therefore, yes, for your work around technologies, we adore you. We would encourage you. We would kindly let us know how we can be of help to you. Testing these capabilities in the primary care setting or in home settings, we can marshal our research infrastructure, the government infrastructure we have under the Indian Council of Medical Research or the Department of Biotechnology, BIRAC, and other systems that are available to you. Please come forward with your ideas and the plethora of technologies which hold so much promise, including robotics, including AI, that will change the way we can look after ourselves. I would not go in the direction of a number of programs that the Ministry of Social Justice has been uh, rolling out and more so refining under the leadership of Saurabhji in more recent times. I would be, in fact, looking forward to hearing from you the latest progress on so many initiatives that are on the plate. We had chance to discuss this more than once in recent times, and indeed, there is a wonderful team out here to serve the nation in this space together, and we promise to do so. But let me add one area uh, which is uh, which is an obvious one, and that is the elderly care economy and elderly care workforce. For health and beyond, huge scope for having uh, professionals, having trained people who can look after our elderly in the primary care setting, in the home settings, anywhere, and in the setting of care homes that you are developing, using technology wherever applicable, but using the hands and the minds and the touch that we all need for ourselves, for our parents, and so on. Huge scope. We would like to see how we can work to multiply that effort. And Saurabhji would be telling that the nation is, from the government, making commitment to have a large number of care providers for the elderly to be developed in the public space, shall we say, the government space. But there's so much more to happen in the private space, bringing competent people and bringing excellent jobs for this segment of educated people and for serving the elderly in various situations in our nation. I look forward to ideas on how we can use the platform of Niti to open pathways for silver economy. Against initiatives from the government will be explained. But how do we go forth? Creating private spaces for silver economy, spaces for digital inclusion of the elderly in a very big way. That should be really something that is doable. The amount of that we have, a little extra for the elderly could make a difference. Last but not the least, I like us to remind you that 50% of our elderly are women and they have special needs of care, privacy, mental health. There are more problems of mental health in the elderly women than men. As I mentioned, privacy, care, and special situations that they require. So let's not forget specific solutions that are to be targeted for our elderly, women elderly in our nation. Everything mainstream may not necessarily help, and because there will be a disadvantage of their economic status in some ways. In principle, in general, we have to be mindful of even more affordable, gender specific solutions wherever such solutions are to be brought in. I'm looking forward eagerly to listening to my distinguished colleague Saurabhji, and I'm here to take your thoughts, your decisions forward. Uh, Tell us how to navigate this area. This is an area which is opening up now as a responsibility on the part of the society, all of us. And this is an area where we have to show, we have to create our own Indian model, which is built on our cultural moorings, which is family centered care, human touch, respect, dignity, and empowerment. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for those very insightful and encouraging words from you. May I request Chairman-elect Asli and MDCO Antara, Shri Rajat Kumar Mehta, to kindly come onto the stage and present a memento to our chief guest, Dr. Vinod Paul. A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much once again, sir. Those insightful words shall stay with us as guiding force. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now request Secretary Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Dr. Saurabh Garg, to kindly share his thoughts.
Good afternoon, Dr. Vinod Paulji. A pleasure always to meet Dr. Paul in various meetings, both officially and otherwise. And thank you to the Association of Senior Living India for inviting me and Dr. Paul, both of us, to this two-day event that you are having. And a pleasure to be here. As I think Dr. Vinod Paul mentioned, that it's, I think, the past decade or so that increasingly the focus is also on the realization that as longevity increases, issues related to senior citizens and the problems and what kind of support that is needed has increasingly taken a greater focus. Though of course we had the national policy on older persons as far back as 1999, and then we had in 2007 the maintenance of Senior Citizens Act. But I think it's really the last decade where a number of organizations, and what is even more heartening is in the private sector, that have developed and working on issues, requirements for the senior citizens. And going forward, even though we are a young nation, but I think we have to have that perspective. Even if you look at the Vision 2047 of a Viksit Bharat, by that time also the proportion of people who would be senior citizens would obviously have increased. Therefore, it's the right time perhaps to what we need to do and prepare the runway for future. Uh, I think everyone realizes the kind of repository that senior citizens are of culture, of traditions, of social mores, and one can only emphasize on that. And it is with that concept in mind, and perhaps also suited to our cultural traditions, that aging at place, aging at home is something which is commonly accepted in our country, and can only be supported, promoted, encouraged in whichever measure that is needed. But at the same time, I think institutionalized care is something that one cannot deny the need for. And while the primacy would be always to aging at home and aging with dignity at home, the fact remains that institutionalized care is something which is required, which is needed, and perhaps as time goes on, it might be required at a greater level. And I think that's where a lot of you are involved in and playing, giving a lot of service to a lot of people in this sector. From the government side, our focus is obviously more on those who are financially are not able to afford themselves. And we run, for example, more than 640 old age senior citizen homes across the country in 360 districts. Our aim is obviously to have at least one such senior citizen home in every district in the country, so that people who are financially not well off, who are indigent, who are poor, they also have the opportunity to age in dignity. I think that's the motto that we would like to follow. And whether that aging in dignity is at home, is it an institutionalized center, it's in an old age home for the poor, or a senior citizen living that many of you are involved in. In fact, I don't know if Asli has this, but it would be useful to prepare an inventory of the senior citizen homes that exist in the country. We have what is run by the central government. We know what is run by the state government. There are a number of NGOs who run them on their own with support from CSR. And there are a lot of private sector homes also, which are for the middle class and the upper middle class and segments who can pay for it. But it would be useful to just have an inventory of these, so that anyone, depending on their requirement, their financial status, they have possible options in front of them. And it also lends some kind of, what should I say, comfort and confidence to senior citizens that they have options depending on the economic scale that they belong to. I mentioned about NGOs running senior citizens homes. NGOs, we work with a lot of them also in training caregivers. We have what we call regional resource training centers, where sensitization programs are done, bridge courses are done. And that's an area that going forward we would be focusing a lot more. Dr. Paul was mentioning about this in his talk. We've made a plan that over the next 3 years we need to have at least 1,100,000 caregivers trained. Already we've selected the agencies who would be participating, and around 40,000 caregivers is the target that we hope to achieve in 23-24 by March 2024 itself. And this is being done in conjunction with a large number of private sector institutions run by the NGO and government NGOs. All of these relate to a 3-month module that has been developed in consultation with the Health Sector Skill Council and the Domestic Workers Sector Workers Skill Council. So it's a combination of these two skill councils that have been, and of course, we've had it vetted by AIMS and NIMHANS, who also work in this sector, so that it has an element of counseling, it has an element of care, and and there are certain benchmarks that this caregivers have to meet. So we hope to have that 40,000 out before March 2024, and over the next 2 years. And 1 lakh is only I would say, an indicative target. We would like to go much higher, and it is something which helps in more than ways than one. It provides caregivers for the senior citizens, at the same time providing employment opportunities to those who are interested and with the qualifications who might meet. So that's an area, and would be very happy to get further suggestions and inputs from all of you on what can be done. There's also a bridge course, which is a 1 week, 2 week course for home givers who are already giving, and for family members. There's an online course which they can do for family members who are engaged in caregiving at home. And there's also a 1 year diploma course, which is more for people who manage institutions, etc. That numbers are still low at the moment, but I suppose as the demand increases, we'll be happy to look at how we can increase those numbers. Apart from this, there is the national helpline, that is 14567, which we've been operating now for more than a couple of years. And we've had more than 2 million people ring up, or 2 million phone calls that have been received. They may not be unique persons, but it offers guidance, information, service. Some amount of counseling is there. And it's obviously, it's free to anyone who rings up, and would strongly encourage you to, at least in the old age homes, senior citizen homes that you ring, to give them, because it gives a lot of information of programs, etc., and areas that might be of use to senior citizens. The other area that we give a lot of emphasis on is the fact that a lot of senior citizens need assistive devices, which Dr. Paul mentioned about. And in the past couple of years, we've distributed these in 252 districts in 269 camps that we've distributed these assistive devices. And these are obviously meant for those whose monthly income doesn't exceed 15,000, because we give them free. But in case there is a requirement for us to work together for people who can afford to pay on their own, and for people who need it, whose incomes are below 15,000, I mean, there are always methods that we can work. Alimco is our agency, does it. We are expanding the number of places where these devices should be available, because at the moment the number of places are limited. So how we can expand that, and those who can pay for it would also have a greater ease, is something that we are working at, and would be happy to get suggestions from all of you. I mentioned about the fact that the requirements and the products and services which seniors need is something that the focus is there, and Dr. Paul mentioned about it. We've started a program which is called the Senior Aging Growth Engine, SAGE, S-A-G-E, SAGE, which essentially supports innovative startups who want to produce or manufacture a product or give a service which is aimed at senior citizens. We provide equity support of up to rupees 1 crore to a startup, and the equity support we limit it to 49%, so that it doesn't become majority owned, so it remains with the private promoter. And we've had around 90 applications. It's the IFCI, the financial company which operates it on our behalf, so it's like a arm's length distance from us. Some of you are members of the committee which evaluates the products and services that are offered. We've had, in the last couple of years since we started, we've had more than 90 applications, and 13 companies have already been assisted for different products. They include, for example, one is making an automated device for home dialysis, so at a limited level. Uh, Another is a hip guard for preventing hip fractures. Lecal smart insoles so that people don't fall, and these kind of cost-effective clinical tests at home that can be done. Some of these kind of products which would be useful for senior citizens is a program that we run. Digital literacy is an area where there's been a lot of demand that has come up. So there are some kind of courses, online courses that are available, but this is an area that we hope to increase our footprint as we go ahead. There are other areas, for example, I think the focus on mental health and the counseling part is something which is possible in the modern in the present era by tele means telecounseling, video, audio kind of opportunities are available. I mentioned about the elder line 14567, but that is an area that we hope to expand so that we can provide more services through the electronic means, and if necessary, also have physical on the ground presence. I'll maybe stop here, and I think it's organizations like these and associations like yours and federations that we hope to work much more closely in the future. I'm aware of some organizations, some federations existing in other parts also, and they have reached out. And we hope to continually improve the programs that we have, some which directly benefit senior citizens, which may be more for those who are indigent, who are not able to afford it, but also to provide a facilitative environment for others to operate, so that people who can afford to pay, they have the confidence and the credibility, if I can say, that when they engage with an agency, they can feel that they are that the service that they are being given is something which is useful. And in this respect, I would strongly request you to think of looking at what kind of standardization we can think of doing in terms of senior citizen homes. So if we have that kind of standardization, and senior citizens who come and live in senior citizen homes always have the fear that what will happen 5 years later, 7 years later, 10 years later. And I think it's very important to provide that comfort to them, that when they are entering into an agreement or a long-term agreement, they are safeguarded against any other pitfalls. So I think that kind of standardization of facilities, standardization of processes, new financial products like reverse mortgages is something which is not popular in our country as yet, but going forward we would have to think of looking at financial products which take into account that people have a certain corpus right now, and that corpus, if depleted over a period of 10 to 15 years, how it can ensure them a certain minimum standards of living. And that is, I think, an association of yours would perhaps definitely be interested, and we would be happy to partner with you. We've had a very close relationship with the Niti Aayog and Dr. Paul and other wings of the government who work in this sector. And we look forward to continuing this engagement at a deeper level going forward to ensure that senior citizens can age with dignity and age productively. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for those guiding words. May I request Founder Chairman Emeritus Asli, Mr. Mansoor Daral, to kindly present a memento to Dr. Saurabh Garg. Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause as we thank Dr. Saurabh Garg for sharing his thoughts with us. May I request Dr. Paul and Dr. Garg, if you have some time, sir, can we open the floor for few questions or maybe a bit of an interaction with the audience? With your permission, sir. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the opportunity. Yes. Kindly introduce yourself and please let us know who the question is for.
Good afternoon, sir. I think a very enlightened interaction we have just seen on the website. And now, my targeted question to Sage. I represent Inheritance Needs Services Private Limited, the first company of its type in India to do only implementation services for inheritance, which means we have a service while you are alive and a service post death, so that the senior citizens is taken care of for seamless transmission of assets to the next beneficiary. We would want whether Sage, we are not wanting money or anything, we just want whether Sage can introduce us to the ecosystem so that we can take it forward. That's my limited question.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, IFCI is the agency that implements SAGE. I would be happy to put you in touch with them. We maintain an arm's length distance with the decision making regarding SAGE, and that's the best way it operates. But if there is a non financial introduction to the system, I'm sure we can find out ways how we can do that.
Thank you so much. Personally obliged.
If somebody could pass the microphone to the lady in the back. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Archana Sharma and I'm running an organization, Samvedna Care. We work in mental health and dementia care. I just have a question for Vinod, sir. So, when are we going to have a Ministry of Senior Citizens? A minister dedicated to senior citizens and their programs and their facilities? Because I think it's time that as a country we recognize that this whole sector needs a special focus and an independent ministry.
Suggestion noted. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If somebody could pass the microphone to the lady on to the left. Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Amita Shaw, and I've retired from the Government of India, Ministry of HRD. I live in a senior citizen setup set up by Ashiana in Bhiwadi. It is an amazing place, and we have a great experience. My question is to Mr. Saurabh. We at Bhiwadi, we were doing a very interesting program for your ministry. NIST was the organization which was in touch with us, and the program was called Anubhav. And as the name says, the senior citizens were sharing our experiences in this 15-minute capsule, a podcast. And we were sending it to NIST, which was further broadcasting it. And the secretary from whom you took over had visited our setup, and he was very pleased that we had done these programs. And at Bhiwadi, we did 150 radio programs for Anubhav and NIST under your ministry. But it has been discontinued. And there's so much of experience of seniors which we want to pass on to the public at large. And it was in Hindi. We don't mind doing it bilingual. We don't mind doing it just for Hindi or English. But sir, if you could please intervene, अनुभव तो हम बांटना चाहेंगे. आप कृपया करके अपने लोगों को बताएं. आपके पास आप वाकिफ़ होंगे इससे. और वो सडनली स्टार्ट ऑफ बहुत अच्छा हुआ. We were very excited, and suddenly there was a full stop to it. You would be able to tell us why this was stopped, and when can we start it again and make a very fruitful sort of contribution to society. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this up. I'm aware of what you are saying, this podcast, and I think I alluded to it while I was talking about it. I won't like to talk about this particular case, but all I'll say is that we want to have it rolled out at the national level, rolled out across the country, and I think the learnings from the pilot, if I can say, that you and there was another one which was going on in Coimbatore, we've learned from that, and we are working to ensure that we can make it much more sustainable and develop it into something across the country. I wouldn't really like to discuss the details of that.
Thank you so much. Dr. Paul, you just said that, sorry, I think the other gentleman, I'm confused who said it, but the women have more, ladies have more problems while living together in senior. I differ with you, sir. At Bhiwadi, the ladies are a much happier lot, believe me. Believe me, I want to tell this whole house. They are much more active. We participate in every single program of Ashiana with full gusto, with full enthusiasm. So, after I've lived there for 10 years, I can really vouch for it that women have a much happier lot there than the men. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm afraid we have to take the other questions offline. So, thank you so much for permitting us to get through this interactive session. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the session and our heartfelt gratitude to our chief guest, Dr. Vinod Paul. A huge round of applause, sir. Your presence has been a great encouragement to each one of us. We also thank Dr. Saurabh Garg. Thank you so much, sir, for guiding us with your words. Indeed, it will stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a huge round of applause as we thank our guest and our chief guest.